Hi, welcome everyone. We'll get started in just a minute. Hi, welcome everyone. Welcome to today's webinar on 30 by 30. What about the other 70%? Cumulative analysis of place-based marine regulations for a more holistic marine protection picture. Thank you guys. Um, my name is Sarah Carr. I'm Chief Knowledge Broker for OCTO, Open Communications for the Ocean. And we're very excited to welcome today's speaker, Claire Colegrove and Alex Driedger of Protected Seas. In addition, I'd also like to welcome Jennifer Sletton and Virgil Zetterland of Protected Seas. They are our panelists who will be helping to answer questions in the question panel and in the chat. So this webinar is brought to you by OCTO, Open Communications for the Ocean. For those of you who aren't familiar with OCTO, we're an NGO that connects ocean professionals to the knowledge and networks they need through our webinar series and our MPA help, EBM help, and ocean plastic list communities. OCTO also provides custom consulting services. This webinar is going to last for an hour. We'll have a formal presentation followed by a question and answer period. You can submit questions at any point during the webinar. And you can submit them either through the Q&A panel or through the chat in the Zoom interface. With the chat, you're allowed to share questions or any information you post with all attendees. And if you do that, we just ask that you keep it on topic and professional, but we welcome you to share relevant information with others as things occur. And if you know of additional resources, that would be helpful. The questions are a little bit easier to moderate from the Q&A, but so if you were trying to decide between them, go that way. But if not, if you wanted to be others to be able to see it and input from other attendees, go ahead and put them in the chat. We are recording this presentation, and a recording will be available later today on the OCTO website. I'll put the link for that in the chat in just a minute. And now I'll turn over the floor to Claire and Alex. We really appreciate you guys coming on today to present this work.
Thanks so much, Sarah. So I'll get started. Good morning, everyone, and thank you to OCTO for inviting us today. I'm Claire Colegrove, staff attorney at Protected Seas, and as Sarah noted, I'm joined by Alex Driedger, our lead for analytics and geospatial integrations. Today, we'll explore how cumulative analysis of marine regulations can offer a clearer, more holistic understanding of ocean protection. While achieving the 30 by 30 targets is critical, effectively managing the remaining 70% of the ocean is equally important. Protected Seas Navigator supports this effort by providing standardized regulatory data for over 23,000 marine areas worldwide, highlighting how regulations overlap and enhance protection beyond traditional MPAs. As we move through our presentation, we encourage you to consider how this data and its capabilities could also support your own work and marine management efforts. Nearly 10 years ago, when we started this project, we set out to fill a significant gap, making marine regulatory information easily accessible worldwide. Maps typically show boundaries clearly, but interpreting exactly what these boundaries meant for human activity was often very challenging. Our goal was straightforward: to create a resource that clearly communicated marine regulations, enabling ocean users, academics, governments, NGOs, and many other stakeholders to easily understand the rules within MPAs and other managed areas, and how these regulations actually shape ocean use. So now we have Navigator, an essential tool providing accessible and comprehensive marine regulation data critical for effective conservation. Covering, as I said, over 23,000 marine and coastal areas, including the high seas, Navigator helps users analyze and compare regulations across jurisdictions. Our spatial aggregation techniques offer insight into overlapping protections, providing a more complete view of marine protection. As a neutral content creator, Protected Seas offers unbiased data that is open access, free with attribution, and adheres to the FAIR data principles. It is findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. Navigator's versatility supports diverse applications, from responsible offshore development to conservation planning. Upon completing our comprehensive global review in 2022, it became abundantly clear that the potential offered by this data significantly transcended the confines of a single managed area. Historically, fragmented management practices have hindered stakeholders, including agency officials themselves, from swiftly and accurately assessing the full scope of marine management opportunities within specific regions. Later in this presentation, Alex will illustrate precisely how our innovative data, coupled with an emerging hex grid analytical method, now enables a comprehensive and dynamic perspective. Our analysis uncovers instances where management approaches are either redundant or directly conflicting, underscoring the need for more improved communication and more meticulous coordination in ocean governance. Moreover, we observe that incorporating regions beyond established MPAs enhances detail and strengthens management analysis, even within the existing MPA boundaries, ultimately contributing to more effective ocean stewardship. So here's an overview of Navigator's level of fishing protection score, which we provide for all areas in the database. This score categorizes marine managed areas based on the strength of fishing regulations and complements detailed summaries of all relevant marine restrictions for each site, with links to the cited regulations included. The LFP is an analytical score ranging from 1 to 5, based solely on the fishing regulations for an individual site. This scoring system allows for quick assessments of protection levels and makes it easy to compare regions, as the same method is applied globally. While users are free to apply any categorical approach in their analysis using our data, the LFP is our approach. It's rigorous, transparent, and consistent. Beyond the LFP score, we also categorize 22 different fishing types and gears and 15 additional marine activities. Each gear or activity is classified as prohibited, restricted, allowed, or unknown, which means regulations don't clearly address it. This standardized coding simplifies large-scale analysis and makes comparing marine regulations much easier and more efficient. Based on the LFP assessment, the Navigator team has determined that 3.3% of the global ocean, 1.2% of the high seas, and 6.5% of national EEZs are currently under high levels of legal protection from fishing. I will note that these percentages reflect the recent reduction by the new presidential proclamation regarding the Pacific Islands Heritage Marine National Monument. These areas, which scored 4 or 5 on the LFP scale, represent regions with significantly stricter fishing regulations and were combined to estimate the total extent of highly protected marine areas. I will highlight that this assessment is specific to the level of regulatory protection from fishing, as I've said. While we have the underlying data on recreational and extractive activities, that information is not actually incorporated into this score. Alex will explain more about how we use that data and other forms of cumulative analysis. To give you a very quick overview of the Navigator map we built to explore the data, available at map.navigatormap.org, there are 3 ways you can approach the information in the map. First, you can analyze marine legal protections at a national level. As you can see, we provide both the percentage of national waters that have declared MPAs within their boundaries, as well as what proportion of the waters are legally protected at the highest level of our assessment, meaning we sum all the areas with an LFP score of 4 or 5. We also now offer regional statistics like overseas territories. You can view a country's level of fishing protection breakdown in more detail by clicking on the restrictions report. From here, you can access a list of marine managed areas in the country, which can be sorted by name, by type, level of fishing protection score, or the size of the managed area. Additionally, you can either search for an individual marine managed area by name in the search bar, or drop a pin anywhere in the map to see a list of all marine managed areas that intersect that location. You can then click on the area report button for a detailed breakdown of how this is managed. For each site, you can view details by clicking on the area report. This includes the purpose of the management, a summary of restrictions, a link to governing regulations, as well as a breakdown of what fishing gears and activities are allowed, restricted, prohibited by regulation in that area. I'll add that version 2 of our map was actually just launched yesterday. So even if you've looked at the map in the past, we invite you to take another look to explore our new features. To develop this global data set within a time frame relevant for goals like 30 by 30, so 2030, we focused primarily on information that was widely available, specifically boundaries and laws of marine managed areas. However, just because an area is intended to be regulated does not guarantee that it effectively is. Important factors such as compliance, enforcement, monitoring, and equitable stakeholder participation significantly impact real-world effectiveness, though they're typically harder to capture in data sets. We see navigators providing a foundational step toward deeper assessments like the MPA guide and MET. Additionally, keeping this information consistently up to date is challenging. We rely heavily on our partners and navigator users to inform us of any changes or inaccuracies. We are currently undertaking a global re-review, but with tens of thousands of areas to evaluate, this process is expected to take about 2 years, at which point we will have to start all over again, making our task feel a bit Sisyphean at times. Fortunately, our initial review took 8 years, so we're improving significantly. And now we're leveraging AI to enhance research, data entry, translation efficiency. So as AI improves, so does Navigator. In response to feedback received on version 1 of Navigator, we have incorporated regulatory tracking and assessment into our data collection workflow. This enhancement allows us to effectively monitor changes in management practices over time. Regulatory tracking significantly improves our efficiency in managing data across multiple regions, particularly when a single law impacts numerous areas simultaneously. Additionally, this advancement empowers us to conduct more detailed analysis of individual laws and provide deeper insights into their specific contributions to area management. Finally, I want to acknowledge a commonly received question as to why we created Navigator when WDPA and MPA Atlas already exist. As I've already emphasized throughout the presentation, our database contains regulatory data and assessment conducted by our team exclusively. MPA Atlas focuses on the MPA stage of establishment and MPA guide assessments from both internal and external sources. WDPA is the central global inventory of all protected areas, both terrestrial and marine, offering comprehensive spatial data, but without details on regulations or effectiveness. We believe all 3 databases offer distinct and complementary data, and Navigator is happy to support their efforts in any way possible. Now I'm going to hand it over to Alex to discuss how we've used this data to complete more in-depth cumulative analysis.
Thanks, Claire. As you saw in some of the earlier slides, a single location in the ocean can fall under many layers of management. Each site or place-based measure may carry its own set of restrictions, serve different management objectives, and be governed by a range of managing authorities. I'm going to focus my portion of the presentation on New Zealand, specifically its national EEZ waters, which recently received a comprehensive update in the Navigator database. Currently, there are just over 1,500 marine managed areas available in the database for this region, including subzones. Of these, 149 are designated as marine protected areas, and the rest are non-MPAs. As you can see, there's a significant degree of boundary overlap. In fact, some locations are intersected by as many as 32 marine managed areas simultaneously. So the challenge is, with so many overlapping marine managed areas, how can we understand the overall usage restrictions and protection level of a specific ocean space? The answer lies in analyzing these protections cumulatively, looking at how all the overlapping sites contribute to the management and legal framework of a given location. By taking this cumulative approach, ocean users can be more accurately informed about the legal status of fishing and other marine activities at sea, and at the same time, resource managers and decision makers gain a more complete cross-jurisdictional perspective on the extent and effectiveness of marine protection in any given area. I'll jump right into what's already available on the Navigator web map. If you click anywhere on the map and then click on the Restrictions tab, you'll see a link to that location's restrictions report, which contains the kind of information displayed on this slide. For example, this particular location, just north of Auckland, intersects with 21 marine managed areas. The restrictions report includes a table with one row for each of these areas. Each row indicates the legal status of various fishing gears and marine activities as recorded in the Navigator database, categorized as prohibited, restricted, allowed, or unknown. And this makes it easy to see which specific restrictions are tied to which management area. At the top of the table, a summary row labeled highest level of restriction shows the most stringent or maximum level of restriction for each gear or activity across all intersecting areas. The summary provides a clear, consolidated view, a snapshot of the cumulative protections in place at that location. To conduct this analysis, I used two techniques, vector layer differencing and grid-based statistics, each offering distinct advantages and limitations. All marine managed areas in the Navigator database are represented by 2D vector boundaries. The vector layer differencing technique involves a stepwise process of selection and spatial operations. First, the areas with the highest level of protection are selected, merged, and dissolved into a single layer. Next, the areas with the next highest level of protection are processed in the same way and then differenced from the previous layer to remove any overlap. This process is repeated across all protection levels, resulting in a non-overlapping set of polygons, each representing the highest level of protection in a given area. This approach is especially effective when analyzing Navigator's level of fishing protection score or a single fishing or non-fishing activity, as it produces precise boundaries and enables accurate calculation of area-based protection statistics. However, it becomes less practical when evaluating multiple activities simultaneously, as it doesn't easily accommodate overlapping restrictions or different types. The second technique, grid-based statistics, involves creating a grid overlay and performing a spatial join to determine which marine managed areas intersect each grid cell. From there, the maximum level of prohibitions and restrictions within each cell is assessed. This method is especially useful for visualizing counts of intersecting areas and restrictions, as it supports a wide range of values and is well suited for identifying broader spatial patterns. One trade-off of this approach is that protection statistics can be sensitive to grid size, so larger cells may dilute or average out protections for smaller sites, potentially reducing the precision of the analysis. So for this analysis, I've adopted the H3 hexagon grid standard, which provides globally consistent hexagonal cells at predefined spatial resolutions. To give you a sense of the different resolutions available, this is resolution 3, with each cell covering approximately 12,000 kilometers squared. Resolution 4 reduces the cell size to about 1,700 kilometers squared. Resolution 5 further refines the grid to about 250 kilometers squared. And finally, resolution 6, which I used for this analysis, offers a cell size of approximately 36 kilometers. I selected this resolution because it provides a good balance between spatial detail and analytical reliability. One of the key advantages of H3 is that each cell has a stable, unique identifier, making it easy for others working with the same grid system to align and integrate their data using these shared cell IDs. So as a first example of vector layer differencing, this map displays the maximum level of fishing protection across New Zealand's EEZ. In fact, maximum level of fishing protection is the default layer when you open the Navigator web map. As shown here, roughly 0.5% of the EEZ is classified as highly protected, which is a combination of the LFP 4 and 5 areas. An additional 19% is moderately protected, LFP 3, largely reflecting the country's strong and well-established fisheries management practices. The vector layer differencing technique can also be applied to the legal status of individual fishing and non-fishing activities in the Navigator database. So this particular map shows the maximum level of legal status of bottom trawling across New Zealand's EEZ. Approximately 35% of the EEZ prohibits bottom trawling, while an additional 61 restricts it and less than 1% allows it. The remaining area is categorized as unknown, meaning bottom trawling is not addressed in available laws or management plans from sites that intersect this area. As an example of a non-fishing activity, this map illustrates the maximum legal status of non-fishing industrial extraction, which includes activities such as oil, gas, and mineral extraction. Currently, less than 1% of New Zealand's marine area either prohibits or restricts this type of industrial extraction, while approximately 99.3% is classified as unknown. And now this likely reflects a broader trend where certain marine activities, particularly non-fishing ones, just aren't thoroughly addressed in marine managed area regulations and management plans. So in cases like this, it is important to supplement Navigator data, other relevant data sets that may provide more detailed insights into the regulatory status and spatial footprint of these activities. Moving on to the grid-based analysis, this map shows the overlapping site count, that is the number of marine managed areas in the Navigator database that intersect each individual hex cell. Navigator is unique as the only global database of marine managed area regulations that goes beyond just MPAs, capturing a wide range of place-based measures. As highlighted earlier, New Zealand includes over 1,300 non-MPAs in the database. You can see on this map that a significant concentration of these areas is located around the more densely populated North Island, particularly in the region near Auckland. This map highlights the additional number of marine managed areas included in the Navigator database that are not represented in the World Database of Protected Areas, simply because Navigator has a broader inclusion scope. As Claire mentioned, the WDPA is the central global inventory of protected areas. It includes self-reported spatial data from nations or on areas designated for the purpose of conservation, whereas Navigator incorporates a wider range of place-based measures, regulatory measures specifically, that often fall outside of WDPA's criteria. We do, however, include the WDPA ID for all matching sites in our database to facilitate comparison between the two. The additional Navigator sites in Navigator include MPA subzones, OECMs, fishery management areas, vessel restricted zones, speed zones, and other types of marine spatial regulations. In New Zealand, Navigator includes an average of 6 to 7 more managed areas per location than the WDPA, with some locations featuring up to 32 additional areas. This expanded scope is intended to complement existing data sets by providing a more comprehensive view of the regulatory landscape. So how do all these overlapping sites actually contribute to legal protections? This map illustrates the cumulative number of fishing prohibitions. So in other words, the total number of distinct fishing prohibitions from all intersecting marine managed areas within each cell. While the average across New Zealand's EEZ is relatively low at 1.3 prohibitions per cell, some locations exhibit as many as 22 prohibitions, indicating a high concentration of regulatory measures. This raises an important question. Is there a correlation between the number of overlapping areas and the number of fishing prohibitions? And it turns out there's a positive but weak correlation. As the number of overlapping sites increases, the number of fishing prohibitions tends to increase slightly. This relationship is statistically significant, suggesting that cumulative management may play a small but meaningful role in shaping protection levels. One particularly noticeable feature in the data is the horizontal band of points at the top of the graph. These represent no-take MPAs that prohibit all fishing types and gears. What's interesting is that they appear across a wide range of overlap values, meaning that these highly protected areas can coincide with both few and many other sites. Similarly, I examined the cumulative number of fishing prohibitions and restrictions combined. So that's the total number of prohibitions plus any additional restrictions not already classified as prohibitions. Given the large number of fishery management areas in New Zealand that apply varying levels of restriction, it's not surprising that the average cumulative count is significantly higher at 13.9 per cell. This reflects the broader regulatory landscape where partial restrictions are more common than outright prohibitions. And these restrictions include targeted measures like gear modifications, species size, or catch limits. This contributes to a more layered and nuanced approach to fisheries management. In this case, there is a moderate positive correlation between overlapping managed areas and the number of fishing prohibitions and restrictions, indicating that areas with more overlapping sites tend to have more comprehensive regulatory frameworks. This relationship is also highly statistically significant and represents a notable improvement over the previous model that only considered prohibitions. The stronger correlation suggests that a broader category of restrictions is more closely aligned with the cumulative management patterns, reinforcing the idea that overlapping site designations contribute meaningfully to the scope and detail of regulatory protections, even if the relationship isn't strong enough to be predictive on its own. Reflecting on that subset of no-take MPAs, though, that we saw in the graphs, where a single site was responsible for all fishing prohibitions within a given cell, I wanted to explore another key question. How often are individual highly protected sites solely responsible for all the fishing prohibitions versus cases where overlapping sites actually collectively contribute additional restrictions? To investigate this, I created a map that looks only at fishing prohibitions. For each hex cell, I subtracted the maximum number of prohibitions from any one individual site intersecting the cell from the total cumulative number of prohibitions across all intersecting sites. The result, in the vast majority of the EEZ, there's no difference, meaning one site is responsible for all recorded prohibitions in a cell. However, there are notable exceptions, especially in coastal areas where up to 3 additional prohibitions emerge only when accounting for overlapping sites cumulatively. To help illustrate this, let's drop a pin on one of these locations and take a look at the corresponding restrictions report from the Navigator web map, where we can see how the additional prohibitions are distributed across the overlapping sites. As you can see in the summary row of the restrictions report, there are 5 total fishing prohibitions at this location. When examining the contributions from individual sites, it becomes clear how they combine to produce the cumulative total. 2 sites each contribute 2 prohibitions, and the 3rd site contributes the final prohibition. So while a single site accounts for at most 2 prohibitions at this location, the total of 5 means that there are 3 additional prohibitions that emerge only when the regulations are analyzed cumulatively across the overlapping sites. When we consider both prohibitions and restrictions together, the difference between cumulative and individual site counts becomes even more pronounced. In some areas of New Zealand's waters, analyzing overlapping sites cumulatively reveals up to 11 additional fishing prohibitions and restrictions, protections that would be missed if we only looked at the sites individually. And similarly, I was curious about the extent to which unknowns across both fishing and non-fishing activity sites could be reduced by analyzing regulations cumulatively rather than on an individual site basis. And to explore this, I subtracted the minimum number of unknowns from any one individual site intersecting a hex cell from the cumulative total of unknowns across all intersecting sites. The results show a significant reduction of unknowns across large portions of the EEZ, with up to 12 fewer unknown values in some areas. This finding strongly underscores the value of the cumulative analysis, which helps provide a more complete and accurate picture of the legal restrictions in place within any given ocean space. When we look at the same map of unknowns and compare the reduction in unknown counts between MPA and non-MPA areas, on average, MPAs show a reduction of 1.7 unknowns per cell, while non-MPAs show a larger reduction of 4.2 unknowns per cell. This suggests that MPAs in New Zealand generally have more complete information on fishing and non-fishing activities within the regulations and management plans, which aligns with expectations. However, it's worth noting that even within MPAs, there can be up to 11 fewer unknown values revealed through cumulative analysis. So this again underscores the importance of analyzing regulatory information cumulatively, regardless of whether location intersects with MPAs or not. In summary, I hope these maps have helped illustrate the value of the Navigator database in making sense of the vast and often complex network of marine management and regulatory regimes across New Zealand. With its global coverage, Navigator also enables this type of analysis to be readily extended to other regions worldwide. While understanding the protections offered by individual marine managed areas is important, it's equally essential to consider how overlapping sites, each with different regulations and management objectives, interact to shape the broader conservation landscape. Cumulative analysis not only reveals where protections are strongest, it also helps reduce regulatory unknowns, identify under-recognized areas of protection, including in non-MPAs, and expose discrepancies between protection labels and actual legal restrictions. These insights are essential for grounding conversations in evidence and improving the accuracy of marine spatial planning, conservation assessments, and policy implementation. Finally, while bold goals like the 30 by 30 target are essential for advancing global ocean conservation, tools like Navigator provide visibility and protections across the entire ocean, not just the 30%. So we encourage everyone to use this data to help inform future conservation and management decisions, ensuring that the remaining 70% is also recognized, understood, and responsibly managed. And as Claire alluded to at the beginning, we truly value feedback. We'd love to hear about your data needs, how you might envision using Navigator, and any considerations we should keep in mind to make the tool as useful, relevant, and actionable as possible for your work. Of course, it's important to acknowledge that this analysis does not answer key questions about the effectiveness of these place-based measures because it doesn't account for what's actually happening on the water. Questions like whether these areas are successfully protecting biodiversity, whether fisheries are being managed sustainably, or whether the original management objectives are being met. To help extend this type of analysis and begin addressing some of these broader questions around ecological outcomes and effectiveness, I highly recommend exploring the Ocean and Coast Information System, which is a collaborative resource developed by NOAA and Esri. This platform brings together a broad suite of ocean-related data sets, enabling more in-depth assessments of ocean health, conservation performance, and management effectiveness. While the hub itself is not yet public, the underlying data is already available in ArcGIS Online at the URL shown on this slide. And currently the data focuses on US waters, but Esri is actively working to expand coverage to the entire global ocean. A key contact for this resource is Mimi Diorio, who serves as the data manager for NOAA's Marine Protected Areas Inventory. And we've had the opportunity to collaborate with Mimi over many years, and her expertise has been instrumental in ensuring that the US Marine Managed Area data in Navigator is as accurate, detailed, and reliable as possible. The Ocean and Coast Information System has aggregated approximately 200 ocean-related variables into the same H3 hexagon grids using resolutions 3 through 6. So this means that the layers that I've been sharing in this presentation can be easily joined to these grids, enabling seamless comparisons, overlays, and integrated analysis. By providing data in these standardized grid formats, the aim is to offer a consistent and accessible starting point for analysis at any location worldwide, helping to catalyze data-driven conservation planning, inform policy, and guide resource management efforts where they are needed most. And this is just a quick screenshot of the Seascape Explorer, showcasing the depth and breadth of the data available within each hex cell. Key Navigator metrics, such as maximum level of fishing protection and the number of marine managed areas, are already integrated and accessible in these layers. How data is presented makes a significant difference in how accessible, interpretable, and ultimately useful it is. Within the Arctic community, and especially the larger ocean community, we're not all data scientists. And that's exactly why there was a deliberate effort to wrap and visualize this information in a way that is approachable and meaningful for a diverse audience, including policymakers, practitioners, researchers, and community advocates. So finally, jumping back to ProtectedSeas Navigator, I'd like to highlight a few organizations that it has direct data integrations with. Through these data integration partnerships, Navigator plays an important role in supporting a wide range of ocean-focused initiatives from supplementing spatial and policy analyses to tracking progress toward global targets like SDG 14 and the 30 by 30 conservation goal. It also contributes valuable context for marine spatial planning, helps interpret vessel monitoring and fishing activity, and supports broader assessments of ocean health and governance. As of last month, our layers and web map on Esri's ArcGIS online platform have been officially accepted into the Living Atlas of the World. And this integration offers users within the Esri ecosystem a seamless way to access Navigator data, enabling them to combine it with other authoritative data sets for deeper analysis and more comprehensive insights. The Navigator team also collaborates closely with a range of organizations to advance ocean management and research by both sharing Navigator data and contributing our expertise in marine managed area regulations developed over years of in-depth analysis. Some examples of this collaborative work include supporting the Marine Biodiversity Observation Network in efforts to track and model species occurrences within MPAs, contributing data to the UN Ocean Decade Program Atlas Aquatica, which is assessing the economic contribution of scuba diving in MPAs, participating in the EU Commission's MSP for Bio program, which is developing tools to enhance biodiversity integration in marine spatial planning. And we're also serving in an advisory role to the International Hydrographic Organization, contributing to the development of S122 standards for representing MPAs on navigational charts used by sea vessels. These partnerships reflect our commitment to ensuring smarter, data-informed decisions for the sustainable management of ocean spaces around the world. And for those attending the United Nations Ocean Conference next month, Claire, myself, and the rest of the Protected Seas team will be there, and we'd love to connect with you in person and continue the conversation. Or please just feel free to reach out to us by email, and we'd love to set up a time to chat with you over Zoom. So thank you again for your time today, and now we'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, thank you, Alex, and thank you, Claire. This was fabulous. Great. We've had lots of questions already answered. So we'll go on to some of the ones that haven't been answered yet, or we'll provide further information on them. There was one which I think you did sort of address with one of your later slides. Is there a similar assessment of enforcement effectiveness, or is this focused on in the paper? Or is this focused on what's on paper? Sorry.
Yeah, so we're only focusing on what's on paper, what's in the regulations. There's certainly, and we, as you said, Alex just highlighted partners like Global Fishing Watch and SkyTruth that are looking a lot more at assisting the enforcement piece. We also are working on different collaborations to help display more enforcement data. We're working on a pilot project with MPA Collaborative to that effect. So we're just starting to dip our toe into that, but really, what we've concentrated on is perfecting the what's on paper, the regulatory aspect.
Okay, thank you, Claire. Is there anything else you wanted to add, or we'll move on to the next question? Okay. Okay, let's see, another question. How does the Navigator integrate with other spatial platforms like Global Fishing Watch's Marine Manager, SkyTruth's 30 by 30 tracker, and IUCN's Protected Planet?
Yeah, I can talk about the SkyTruth and Global Fishing Watch integrations. So we provide them the marine managed area boundaries on a regular basis, and also provide them statistics about LFP, or level of fishing protection coverage, so that they can report those in their systems as well. I think SkyTruth specifically includes our LFP stats for each country or region. Yeah, in Global Fishing Watch, our boundaries are a layer that you can toggle on, and that provides people a sense of the fishing activity, like from Global Fishing Watch, that's happening within some of these sites. And I know there's some future efforts to, like, take the research into understanding, based on the restrictions that we're providing and the fishing activity that they're seeing from their data, how, where there might be like illegal activity happening. So making it easier to, understand what's happening on the ground versus the rules with that integration. It's not there yet, but that's where we would kind of, envision it going.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
And I'll just add really quickly when it comes to WDPA, we're not integrated into WDPA, but we do in our data include the WDPA for every site that has a WDPA ID, so you can cross-reference that way.
Okay, great. Thank you, Alex, and thank you, Claire. Okay. Our next question, updating data is indeed very challenging as some MPAs could be degazetted or have wrong data points or some protection change from national to provincial regulations or reverse. How often are these data updated?
Yeah, great question. So as I said in my presentation, we did a massive review of the entire globe over 8 years, and now we're conducting an entire globe re-review, which we're about halfway through. So we're trying to kind of speed up that rate of re-review so that there's never any countries that we haven't ourselves looked at more than every few years, but we also are using all sorts of different sources, be it AI or alerts or partners to alert us to if there are any important changes. We do make changes on the fly when we're, alerted to that. So we're trying to keep it up to date as possible, but we are a small team. So any information that people see that is out to date, using those contact emails that you can see before you is very, very helpful.
Okay, great. Thank you, Claire. Another question that came up. So to be clear, this data is looking at the level of restrictive activities both within and outside marine protected areas and provides data for the whole marine area of a country?
That's correct.
Yeah, correct.
Okay, and then another question that came up, will this live on Esri's Living Atlas at some point, like the Pristine Seas initiative?
Yeah, I mean, it already does to some extent. Our, data, all our remanaged areas and sort of summaries of the regulatory information already exist in Living Atlas. When you click on a site on the Living Atlas layer, it will also link to our Protected Seas web map for that area. So you can then get a hold of, the entire suite of information that we provide in our database. So Living Atlas is a bit of a, summary of the full set of information we have. In terms of the hex grids that I presented, that is not currently available, but it is something that we would like to publish, in the future. And yeah, I think that could be really useful for people. I mean, what you can do right now, though, is go to our web map and go to the restrictions reports, and anywhere you click, as I showed in the presentation, you'll get that table of what sites intersect and the protections that they provide. So that's kind of the best current way to get a sense of the cumulative, nature of protections at a single point location.
Okay, thank you guys. Okay, let's see. Next question. How does your software help in, sorry, one just disappeared, moved on me. Okay, help enforce or support compliance with conservation regulations in marine environments?
Sure, I can start to speak to that. I mean, really one of the biggest things is, and this is something that is probably particularly unique to the marine world is that, uh, you know, in the terrestrial world, it's pretty clear where boundaries of property and ownership and designation are. Whereas in the marine space, you can't draw a line, there's no delineation, it's not very clear. So one thing that we really help to do is to have those boundaries and have the description of what's going on in any of those given spaces so you know what you can and can't do. And we actually also have a few integrations with a few different boating apps, including Decky and things like that, so that people can see when they are actually on the water, are they in an area that they can't be using a specific gear? You know, this is a way they can actually visualize that given where they are in the big broad ocean. So we help in that way. Also, the Protected Seas team also, part of our team works on a shore-based radar system that works on that does vessel tracking within 5 nautical miles of an area. And they also use our data to be able to show, are people fishing around the edges of MPAs? Are they fishing within the boundaries illegally? Providing that data has helped with prosecutors, with enforcement officers to be able to show that people are or are not in compliance on the ocean.
Okay, great. Thank you, guys. A question that came up that was answered in writing, but it would be great to get your additional feedback. Should this be promoted within the context of global biodiversity feedback target 10, not just 30 by 30?
Alex, do you
I'm not exactly familiar with what that entails.
yeah.
I think
And then Virgil, if you wanted to come off
maybe,
mute,
yeah,
you're
maybe
welcome
Virgil
to.
could like
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
read his responsibility.
Yeah, so I think target 10 is basically the other 70% of the ocean target. So the sustainably managed. So definitely, a big focus of this review is the second review is adding a lot of, as many marine managed areas outside of MPAs as we can globally, with, to build, to hopefully provide, a tool to help with assessing target 10 as we get, because obviously, we're only 5 years from 30 by 30 as well. So it doesn't mean we're all going to stop work and find other jobs. There's going to be a lot still to do, both in MPA space and sustainable ocean management space. So yes, definitely looking at how we can contribute there. OECMs are certainly under the 30 by 30 purview, but of course, fundamentally, they're, what are being considered for OECMs are, principally things that would also potentially be in target 10.
Okay, great. Thank you, Virgil. Appreciate that. Okay, another question that was answered in the chat, but if we could expand on that anymore. How does your regulatory assessment track and monitor a country's implementation of the BBNJ agreement?
Sure, I can take this one. So we're not currently tracking who has actually, the few right now countries that have ratified the BBNJ. I mean, we are personally following as that proceeds. But in terms of once places start to go forward for nomination for high seas MPAs, we will absolutely, first of all, be happy to contribute data since we have mapped and assessed so many high seas areas to show where there's already management overlaying those proposed areas. We partner with Mission Blue, and a lot of their hope spots will align with where some of these high seas MPAs will go. So we've already kind of provided data where those intersect hope spots. And yeah, as soon as any of the area-based management places go into effect, we will absolutely be adding that to the map.
Okay, great. Thank you, Claire. And then I was just going to put Virgil and Jennifer on the spot. I think all the questions that we have in the chat and the Q&A have been addressed, but since Virgil and Jennifer were answering questions in the answering a lot of those questions. I was wondering if there were any you wanted to expand on or call out in particular.
Oh, okay. So, I think Claire and Alex obviously did a fantastic job laying out, what our database is, also what our database isn't, but what the power is of what we've put together here. As Claire mentioned, we are distinct from other similar efforts in that we really just look at the regulations and use that as our measure of how well I guess the intent of protection is, and oftentimes that can also really reflect what's happening, but oftentimes it doesn't, and we understand that. We are very interested in the enforcement piece of it, and I've seen a lot of interest in that here in the questions, and we're interested in it because obviously that is a huge factor in how effective the regulations actually are, and we are exploring all these different ways to look into that. We've partnered with fantastic organizations that are very powerful in being able to help that along, and we're brainstorming all the time on how we can do that. And then I'll let Virgil take over.
I'd really just like to thank all the attendees for your time today, and also for all the work you're doing in ocean conservation, because it's definitely we're a very small community trying to tackle huge, the biggest piece of our Earth. So again, I want to really, a big gratifying part of our work is the work we get to do with so many other great people and organizations. So again, I want to just thank everybody for their time, and of course also thank my team for all the hard work they put in on this project.
Great, thank you guys. Oh, we do have one new question. Let's see. I'm not sure if it's outside of the scope of this, though.
Yeah, so I will say the intent of our data also is for others to use them for their analysis. So we feel like it really can help others. However, we don't track the health of species in certain areas. We're not marine biologists. We don't do the marine spatial planning, but we do think that our data really can help, combined with other people's expertise, in furthering that and making it quicker, because then they don't have to do this extra piece. So some of the questions are asking about that piece of it. We leave that to those experts to look into that and offer our data as a support.
Okay, fabulous. No, I think Claire and Alex, was a fantastic presentation. And great answering all the questions. And thank you, Virgil and Jennifer, for letting us get to everything. We would have run out of time if we were doing everything orally. So anyway, thank you guys. Thank you to everyone from Protected Seas for this great work and sharing it with us. And thank you to all the attendees for being so attentive and sharing all of your information and knowledge. We hope everyone is able to attend future webinars. We actually have Ocean Mind coming up next month, related on a related topic and their work. And we really are glad we are able to do this, and we hope you can attend future webinars.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everyone.